The rain was falling in King's Landing, soft at first, like the kind of drizzle that only whispered to the rooftops. But by the time Tyrion reached the crypts beneath the Red Keep, it was a downpour, as if the sky itself was mourning something yet to be lost. He hadn't meant to come down here, not tonight, not after the way Daenerys had looked at him, like a problem that needed solving, not a man worth listening to. The burned-out shell of King's Landing still stank of death and broken stone, and yet his feet had brought him here. Drawn by something he couldn't explain, he lit a torch, the flame dancing against the cold, wet walls of the tomb, past old kings and queens, past the bones of those who wore crowns and those who died trying, past his brother and sister's final resting place, buried under the ruins of their lies. He stopped in front of an unfamiliar section, a small alcove, unmarked, out of place, just stone and shadow. "You're not supposed to be here," a voice muttered behind him. Tyrion turned slowly. It was Varys's old scribe, Maelor, a man he thought had fled with the spider. Pale, aging, eyes darting like he carried 1,000 secrets inside his robe. "I could say the same for you," Tyrion replied dryly. But Maelor didn't laugh. Instead, he stepped forward, holding something close to his chest. A scroll, sealed. In black wax, the Targaryen sigil stamped in it. "It's time you knew," the man whispered, "before she burns the last truth from the world." Tyrion narrowed his eyes. What truth? Maelor offered him the scroll, but his hand trembled. "The truth of who you are, who your mother really was, and why Tywin Lannister hated you so much." Tyrion didn't move. "Go on then, ruin what's left of me." Maelor swallowed hard, then spoke the words that would burn through Tyrion's soul forever. "Your mother wasn't Joanna Lannister. She was Elia Martell's younger sister, a Targaryen mistress, hidden away during Robert's rebellion. She died giving birth to you. Tywin took you in not out of mercy, but shame. He knew you were Aerys's bastard, the Mad King's last son." The silence that followed wasn't just disbelief. It was denial, choking in Tyrion's throat like ash. "That's impossible," he said, but his voice didn't sound like his own. "Tywin would have never—" "Which is why he hated you," Maelor interrupted. "Not because you killed Joanna, but because you were the last insult the Mad King ever gave him." The torch in Tyrion's hand crackled, the flame shivering like it too was afraid. His whole life had been a cruel joke. The sneers, the beatings, the cold, unspoken hatred from the man who raised him. It had all been real. Just not for the reason he thought. Not because he was a dwarf, but because he was a dragon, and dragons were not supposed to wear lions' colors. "Why tell me this now?" Tyrion asked. Maelor looked around, as if the stones themselves were listening. "Because Daenerys will never let you live if she finds out first, and the people won't follow a queen who butchered a city, but they might follow the man who survived them all, the man with Lannister cunning and Targaryen blood." Tyrion stared at the scroll. He didn't take it. Instead, he whispered, "I never wanted the throne." Maelor's voice was calm, but firm. "You don't get to want it. You were born for it." Upstairs, the Red Keep still smouldered, and in that moment, deep beneath the stones and ghosts of kings, Tyrion realized something. He would never be free of this game, because the game had never been about honor or birthright or even dragons. It had always been about fire, and now he carried it in his veins. The torchlight flickered as Tyrion emerged. From the crypts, the storm above finally giving way to a heavy, suffocating silence. The kind that settled over a city after it had wept all it could. He clutched the scroll now, though he hadn't wanted to. The weight of it was unbearable, as if the parchment itself had a heartbeat. He hadn't even broken the seal yet. He didn't need to. Maelor's words were enough to tear his world apart. He walked with no destination, past scorched stone, past soldiers with dull, defeated eyes. The Unsullied watched him like they always did, not with contempt, but with a readiness that said one command, and you die. He used to walk this city with careful arrogance. Now every step felt like walking a razor's edge. He stopped only when he reached the Tower of the Hand, the seat of his greatest sins and smallest victories. No one had touched it since Daenerys took the throne. No hand had been named since he threw away his pin in defiance. The chamber was cold, dust-coated, the once polished table. The fire was long dead. He sat in the chair anyway, not out of nostalgia, but because it was the only place left that didn't demand loyalty or blood. The door creaked open. Jon Snow stepped in, silent and cautious. "You disappeared," Jon said quietly, his face hard to read. "Grey Worm. Wanted your head." Tyrion looked up, trying to summon a smirk, but it died before it could reach his lips. "He always did." Jon stepped closer. "I had to tell them you went to mourn your brother and sister. They barely believed it." Tyrion tilted his head. It wasn't a lie. Jon sat across from him, folding his hands, glancing at the scroll. Tyrion kept half hidden beneath his cloak. "What is that?" "A story," Tyrion said slowly. "One that changes everything." Again, Jon's eyes narrowed. "You've read it?" "No." He let out a sharp breath. "Because I already know it's true." Jon stared at him for a long time, then said, "What are you talking about?" Tyrion leaned forward, resting his elbows. On the table, he looked tired, not just in body but in soul, the kind of tired that came from too many deaths, too many choices that never saved anyone. "I'm not who I thought I was," he said. "I was never a Lannister, not by blood." Jon didn't flinch. He had learned long ago that names and banners meant little when set beside war and fire. "Then what are you?" Tyrion hesitated, then said it. The words, once spoken, felt heavier than the city's ruins. "Targaryen, Aerys's bastard, hidden, raised in hate, the last dragon they never counted." Jon's lips parted slightly, then closed again. A silence stretched between them. Jon had never trusted easily, and yet he didn't question Tyrion's truth. He had lived through enough prophecy and bloodlines to know that madness rarely came without legacy. "Does Daenerys know?" he asked. Tyrion shook his head. "Not yet, but she will, and when she does, she'll see you as a threat." "No," Tyrion said bitterly. "She'll see me as something worse, a rival, a claim she can't burn away without staining herself further." Jon stood and walked to the window, looking out at the broken city below. "You don't want the throne." "I want peace," Tyrion said. "I want to drink wine without the weight of a crown. But what I want doesn't matter anymore. You know that better than anyone." Jon turned back to him, something flickering in his eyes. "So, what do we do?" Tyrion looked at him, and for the first time in days, he didn't feel alone. "We survive," he said. "We survive long enough to decide whether I'm the last hope of the realm or its final curse." Outside, the sun tried to break through the ash-choked clouds. But inside, in the ruined heart of power, two men stood on the edge of destiny, and one of them was a dragon finally waking. The first thing Tyrion noticed when he woke the next morning was how quiet the keep had become. It wasn't the peaceful kind of silence. It was the kind that made the hairs on your neck rise, the kind that whispered something was moving just beneath the surface. He dressed slowly, eyes on the scroll he'd left untouched beside his bed. Its seal had cracked during the night, maybe from the firelight, maybe from fate. He didn't read it, not yet. He stepped out into the hallway and was greeted by two Unsullied. They said nothing, but the way they shifted on their feet told him everything. They were tense, alert, ready. Tyrion followed without asking where they were taking him. He already knew. Daenerys. They brought him to the Hall of the Throne. What was left of it, anyway? The great melted ruin of the Iron Throne loomed behind her like a scar of history. She stood in front of it, not sitting. Snowflakes fell through, the shattered roof above, settling gently on her shoulders like ash. "You've been busy," she said, her voice flat. Tyrion didn't answer. He walked forward slowly, careful not to show too much defiance, but not submission either. She turned toward him. Her eyes held that same spark he'd seen in her after the bells rang, when the city burned and mercy died in the streets. "Varys kept secrets from me, so did Jon. And now you too?" Tyrion raised a brow. "What exactly do you think I've done?" She took a step closer. "You were seen speaking with a man in the crypts, a man who served the one who betrayed me. You left with something in your hand. So I'm not allowed to mourn without suspicion?" Tyrion said softly. She didn't blink. "There are no accidents in this game, Tyrion. You know that better than anyone." He paused. He could lie. Say he found nothing. Say the man was mad. Say the scroll was trash. But she was already past the point of trusting. And Tyrion had lied enough in his life to know when it wouldn't save him, so he chose a different path. "I know who I am," he said. She stared at him, no emotion on her face. "I'm not your hand. I'm not a Lannister. I'm not your enemy. And I'm not your subject." He took out the scroll and tossed it at her feet. "I'm your cousin, your blood." The words hit harder than he expected. Daenerys didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at the scroll like it might bite her. "You expect me to believe this?" she said finally. "I expect nothing," he replied. "But I know you. I know you burned a city because you thought it would stop people from challenging your claim. But now there's another claim, one you can't kill without tearing your own legacy apart." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "I was born to rule, and I will rule." Tyrion didn't flinch. "And if the people would rather a man of peace over a queen of ash?" Her eyes flared. "They don't get to choose. I freed them." Tyrion looked at her for a long moment, and in that moment something inside him broke, not from fear, but from clarity. The girl he once believed in was gone. What stood before him was a queen made of fire and fury, and soon nothing else. "I don't want the throne," he said. "But I will not let you destroy what's left of this realm just to keep it." She stepped back, nodding slowly. "Then you've chosen your side." "No," Tyrion said. "I've chosen the truth." Guards moved in behind him. She didn't need to speak. The order was clear. Arrest him, chain him, silence him. But as they stepped forward, the doors to the hall burst open. Jon Snow stood there, sword at his side, flanked by Ser Davos and Arya Stark. "We need to talk," Jon said, eyes locked on Daenerys. And just like that, the air grew colder. The war for the throne wasn't over. It was just beginning. The tension inside the throne room was sharp enough to cut steel. No one moved, no one breathed. Daenerys stood like a statue of flame, while Jon faced her with that same quiet strength that once made men call him king, even when he wanted nothing of the sort. Tyrion stood between them, chained now, his wrists, bound tightly in iron, but his voice sharper than ever. "I suppose we're past pleasantries," he said, glancing between Jon and Daenerys. "Would someone kindly explain how the North and the Reach came marching into the throne room without a single, unsullied batting an eye?" Daenerys didn't look at him. She looked at Jon. Only Jon. "Why are you here?" she asked coldly. Jon stepped forward. Davos didn't stop him. Arya didn't blink. "I came to talk," he said, his voice calm. "But not with swords. Not yet." Dany's eyes flicked to Arya, then back to Jon. "You surround yourself with assassins and traitors and call it peace." "I came with them," Davos said, stepping forward, "because someone needs to speak with sense. There's too much fire in this hall already." Tyrion watched her closely. Daenerys had changed. The more power she claimed, the more brittle she became. It wasn't just madness. It was fear, disguised as strength. "I know what he found," Jon said quietly. "The scroll, the bloodline. It's true, isn't it?" Her jaw tensed. "It doesn't matter." "It matters," Tyrion snapped, chains rattling. "Because it means the man you've imprisoned is not just your kin. He may be the last legitimate heir to the throne." Arya stepped forward now, calm as winter. "You say you broke the wheel, but all you did was set it on fire." Daenerys's expression darkened. "And what would you do, girl of knives? Put your brother on the throne, another man with a name and a sword?" Arya's eyes didn't flinch. "I'd burn the throne itself, if it meant stopping you." Tyrion almost smiled. There was something about Arya so unshaken, so sharp, that reminded him of death dressed in wolf's clothing. If Daenerys had any sense, she'd be afraid of her more than any man in this room. But Daenerys wasn't afraid. She was furious. "I gave this world peace," she shouted. "I broke chains. I ended tyrants. And all I've gotten in return is a doubt and betrayal." "No," Jon said softly. "What you gave it was fear, and the world will never forget that." Her voice turned to steel. "So what now? You crown him, the dwarf bastard born in secret, the dragon you'd rather serve than a queen who fought for you?" Jon didn't answer. Not yet. He looked at Tyrion. Tyrion met his eyes, and in that moment, there was no game, no play, no sarcasm, only truth. "I didn't ask for this," Tyrion said quietly. "But if claiming it means saving what's left of this realm from fire and blood, then maybe it's time someone ruled who never wanted to." Silence fell again, and then Daenerys said something no one expected. "Then let the people decide." Everyone froze. Jon's brow furrowed. "You mean a council?" she said through clenched teeth. "A vote. Call it whatever you like. We let them choose. Let them see who they truly want." Arya raised an eyebrow. "And if they don't choose you?" Daenerys' smile was cold. "Then they'll live with their choice, or die with it." Tyrion narrowed his eyes. She was planning something. She didn't give up power. She shifted the battlefield, but for now it was a step, a dangerous one, but a step nonetheless. "Then let it begin," he said. "A trial, by truth, not fire." And outside the broken hall, ravens were already being sent to every corner of the realm, because the game wasn't over, it was evolving. And this time, the players were writing new rules. The ravens flew for days, from the charred towers of King's Landing to the frozen gates of Winterfell, to the stone halls of the Eyrie and the sun-soaked gardens of Sunspear. One by one, the great houses received the summons. Come to the capital. Choose the future of the realm. Witness the crowning of truth. Some arrived with honor. Some arrived with swords. But all arrived with suspicion. The Red Keep was still wounded, scaffolding holding up walls that should have fallen. Workers moved like ghosts through rubble, rebuilding what had been shattered. But no stone could erase the blood that once soaked these halls. Tyrion watched it all from the balcony of the Hand's Tower, still bound in chains, though his guards no longer shadowed him as tightly. He'd become a symbol now, a walking controversy. The bastard son of Aerys Targaryen, unclaimed, unproven, unwanted, and yet possibly the realm's only chance at peace. Jon joined him silently. "They came," Tyrion muttered, not looking over. "I expected half of them to send poison." Instead, Jon leaned on the rail beside him. "Some still might." Tyrion gave a bitter chuckle. "Ah, Westeros, where democracy is introduced with daggers." Below, the courtyard swelled with banners, Stark direwolves, Arryn falcons, Martell sons, Baratheon stags. It felt like a war council, not a peaceful gathering. "They won't all accept it," Jon said. "Some won't believe the truth about you." "They don't have to," Tyrion said. "They just have to believe I'm less dangerous than her." They both turned toward the throne room. Daenerys hadn't been seen publicly since her announcement. Rumors whispered that she was amassing forces in the East Wing, that her Dothraki were sharpening blades, that Grey Worm had a list, and Tyrion's name was still on it. "She's not going to give up her claim," Jon said. "No," Tyrion agreed, "but she'll pretend to, for now." Jon hesitated. And if they vote for her? Tyrion looked out over the city. Then the world burns again, only this time by choice. Later that day, the great hall was filled. Wooden seats replaced. Thrones. No crown sat on the dais. In its place, a single table with nothing but a rolled parchment, blank, for the first name of a new king or queen. Sansa stood tall beside her brother. Arya sat quietly, dagger visible. Davos watched everyone. Brienne, silent as stone, stood guard behind them. Gendry represented the Stormlands now. Sweetrabin came from the Vale, older and sharper than before. Samwell Tarly stood for the Reach, his eyes scanning every word, every gesture. From Dorne came Nyra Martell, young, fierce and determined, never to bend the knee again. And then there was Daenerys. She walked in like she owned the room, wearing black and red, her gaze cool and imperial. Grey Worm followed, hand on his sword, unsullied, flanking the walls, and when Tyrion was brought in, still chained, the silence cracked like ice. He didn't look small. He looked dangerous now. "The realm is broken," Daenerys began, her voice calm but commanding. "We can rebuild it, but only if we choose the right ruler." Murmurs rose. Some nodded. Others looked away. Tyrion stepped forward, guards beside him. He didn't ask to speak. He didn't bow. He just spoke. "You all know me. You've seen what I've done. Some of you hate me, some of you should. I've lied, killed, betrayed, and lost more than I can ever name. But I've also learned one thing." He paused, letting silence pull them in. "No one should ever want to rule." A few heads turned. The moment someone wants the throne, they've already lost the right to sit on it, because they'll do anything to keep it. Burn cities, silence truth, kill love. We've all seen it, again and again. He looked directly at Daenerys. "I never asked to be born of Targaryen blood. I never wanted to carry this burden. But maybe that's exactly why I should, because I know what power does, and I fear it, more than I crave it." Sam stood. "Then let the houses decide, here and now." A long silence. Then one by one they began to speak. Sansa. Tyrion of House. Targaryen. Gendry. Tyrion. Davos. I. Arya said nothing, just nodded once. Sam. I. The votes kept coming, some hesitant, some reluctant. Then Daenerys rose. "I vote for myself," she said, voice like winter steel. "The people follow me, the armies answer to me. I am the realm." Tyrion raised his voice. "And yet here you stand, asking for their permission." Daenerys' eyes darkened, but the final vote came from Nyra Martell, and she said one word: Tyrion. It was done. A quiet fell that no one dared break, except Grey Worm, who stepped forward, fury in his eyes. "This is a betrayal." "No," said Jon. "This is what you fought for. Freedom." And somewhere in the silence, something cracked. It wasn't stone, it was fate. The hall emptied slowly, like a battlefield after the fighting had paused, but not ended. There were no cheers, no celebration, just whispers, tension, and too many eyes darting toward Daenerys, whose silence was louder than any scream. Tyrion was unchained, his wrists marked from the iron's bite, but his expression never shifted. Not triumph, not relief, just acceptance. He hadn't wanted the throne, but it had been laid at his feet like a poisoned gift. He walked out of the hall, flanked by Jon and Davos, Arya, a silent shadow behind them. The moment they stepped into the corridor, Jon closed the door and turned to him. "She's going to make a move," he said, no hesitation. That vote meant nothing to her. "I know," Tyrion muttered, "and she'll burn this city again before letting it go a second time." Davos leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "She still commands the Unsullied and the Dothraki. You've got a council, Tyrion. She's got an army." Arya finally spoke, voice low and calm. "So what are we waiting for?" Tyrion sighed. A mistake, something public, something we can't ignore, because until then she's still a queen in their eyes, even if the council spoke. Jon's eyes narrowed. She won't wait long. He was right. The next morning, smoke rose again in King's Landing, not from war, from executions. Grey Worm dragged 5 men into the square outside the Red Keep, former Lannister soldiers. One was no older than 20. They were accused of conspiring with traitors. Though no one saw them speak to anyone, they were stabbed one by one in full view of the people. Tyrion heard the screams from his tower. He ran down without thinking, heart hammering. By the time he reached the square, the bodies were already cooling in the dust, blood seeping into cracked stone. Daenerys stood beside Grey Worm, her face unreadable. "This is how you govern now?" Tyrion shouted, stepping into the blood-soaked square. "This is the justice you spoke of." "They were traitors," she said calmly. "They spoke of rebellion, of you." "I've spoken of rebellion," Tyrion hissed. "So have they." He gestured toward the crowd. "Are you going to kill them all?" Grey Worm stepped forward. "You insult the Queen." "I warn the Queen," Tyrion snapped, "because if you keep killing, one day there'll be no one left to kneel." Daenerys turned to him, her voice low but dangerous. "I offered the realm peace. They gave me treachery." Tyrion stepped closer. "You don't want peace. You want obedience." Their eyes locked. It was the first time she looked at him and didn't see an advisor. She saw a rival. And for the first time, Tyrion truly feared her. That night the city was restless. The people muttered behind closed doors. Soldiers shifted nervously at their posts. No one trusted the silence. Not after fire had become so common. Jon found Tyrion in the council chamber, pacing like a man with too many thoughts and no good answers. "She's going to strike soon," Jon said. "You know it. You felt it." Tyrion nodded. "I've seen in the look before, in her father's eyes, when he ordered wildfire placed beneath the city." Jon swallowed. "So what do we do?" Tyrion looked up at him. "We end this. Tonight." Jon blinked. "You mean—" "Yes." Tyrion's voice was cold now, resigned. "Before she brings the realm to ash again, before she kills more innocents to prove she's a queen." Jon looked away, jaw clenched. "There's got to be another way." "She won't stop," Tyrion said. "You know it. She burned children. She didn't blink. You saw it." Jon was silent for a long time. Then, "It has to be me." Tyrion didn't disagree. "She trusts you," he said quietly. "Enough. To listen. Just long enough." Jon closed his eyes, his soul breaking in ways he couldn't explain. "I loved her. I know. But I won't let her destroy everything." He turned and walked toward the door. Tyrion stopped him just for a moment. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry it has to be you." Jon nodded once. "Me too." Deep in the heart of the keep, where the melted throne still stood like a twisted crown of bones, Daenerys waited. She didn't see Jon as a threat. That would be her final mistake. Snow drifted softly through the broken roof of the throne room, blanketing the scorched stones in a deceptive quiet. Ash and winter tangled together like the past and future. The Iron Throne, or what remained of it, stood at the end of the hall, twisted and half-melted, its jagged blades now a shadow of conquest. Daenerys stood before it. Her hand brushed one blackened edge, her eyes distant. She didn't turn when Jon entered. She didn't have to. She knew it was him by the silence that followed, heavy, slow, weighted with something more final than footsteps. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice soft, almost wistful. "Even now, even broken." Jon stopped a few steps behind her. "You've come a long way." She turned then, slowly. Snowflakes clung to her hair, her lashes, but she didn't seem to feel the cold. "I did it," she said. "I broke the wheel." Jon's expression was unreadable. "You burned it." She stepped toward him. "I freed them from tyranny, from the Lannisters, from the old world." "And now they fear you," Jon said, his voice low. "You rule by fear, not love." Her jaw tightened. "They will learn to understand. In time, the world we're building, it needs strength, order." Jon's hand hovered near the hilt of his sword, though he didn't draw it. "You killed children in the streets." Her eyes darkened. "They were the price. All great change demands sacrifice. Don't pretend you don't understand that." "I do," Jon whispered. "And that's what scares me." She stepped even closer. "I trusted you, Jon. I still do. We can build something better, together. No more betrayals, no more lies, just fire and blood to cleanse the rot." He stared at her, at the woman he had once held in his arms, the woman he thought could save the world. But now all he saw was a queen made of ashes and ghosts. "I don't want the throne," he said. She smiled, stepping close enough to touch his chest. "Then take my hand. Be my king, if not in name, in truth. We were meant for this. You and I, dragon and wolf." Jon looked into her eyes, and for a fleeting moment he wanted to believe her, to forget the screams, the fire, the charred bones of innocence, but he remembered Tyrion's words, "You know she'll never stop." And he knew she wouldn't. He stepped forward, slowly, gently. He kissed her, soft, trembling, one last time. Her breath caught, and in that heartbeat she smiled. Then came the sound, a quiet gasp and a blade sliding home. Her eyes widened. Jon held her as her body sagged against him, his dagger buried in her heart. Snow fell harder. The throne stood silent, her blood soaked into the floor, a red flower blooming on white stone. She didn't scream. She just looked at him, betrayal and love colliding in her gaze. And then finally, she was still. He lowered her to the ground. She died with fire in her veins, and Jon Snow, the man who never wanted to rule, became the man who killed a queen. Outside the hall, Drogon stirred. He felt it. The death, the loss, the betrayal. The earth trembled as the dragon landed. Before the throne room, its shriek echoing across the city. Jon didn't run. He stood there, his chest heaving, blood on his hands. Drogon stepped forward, eyes locked on Daenerys' lifeless form. Then he roared. Fire exploded from his lungs, but not at Jon. Instead, he turned and unleashed his fury on the throne. The iron monstrosity that had taken mother after mother, king after king, the symbol of all their madness. He melted it, every last blade, until nothing remained but molten metal. And then, with a soft whimper, Drogon took Daenerys' body gently in his claws and rose into the ash-choked sky, disappearing beyond the clouds. He didn't kill Jon. He didn't look back. He just left. The city didn't cheer. There was no celebration, only silence. Tyrion entered the hall moments later, finding Jon still standing over the empty space where queen and throne had been. "It's done," Jon said, voice hollow. Tyrion looked around, then at Jon. "No," he said. "It's just beginning." The sky over King's Landing was grey for days, not from smoke, not from war, but from the weight of what had been done. The council met in the dragon pit once more, not to elect, not to argue, but to clean the blood from the future. Daenerys was gone. Drogon had vanished with her body into the distant east. The Iron Throne was nothing but a puddle of cooled steel, and the man who had slain her, the last Queen of Fire, stood before them with bound hands and a shadow on his face that would never lift. Jon Snow had not fled. He had confessed before. The body was cold, and now he stood before the lords and ladies of Westeros, not as a king, but as a kinslayer, a queenslayer, a man who had traded love for peace. Tyrion sat with the council now, no longer bound but not entirely free. He had become the thread holding the realm together, even as it threatened to unravel again. Sansa sat to his left, silent. Arya to his right, stone-faced. Gendry, Sam, Nera Martell, Davos, Brienne, Sweet Robin, Jon Royce. They had come again, and this time there was no pageantry, just grim faces and the burden of rebuilding a realm that had lost faith in crowns. "We can't kill him," Sam said finally, breaking the long silence. "Not after everything he's done." "He murdered the Queen," Jon Royce said. "There must be consequence." Sansa's voice was cold and calm. There was consequence. He ended the madness. He saved us all. "But if we let him walk free," Gendry said, "we set the precedent that kings and queens are disposable." Tyrion stood, slowly. He looked at Jon, then at the council. "I have made more mistakes than any man alive," he began. "I served monsters. I advised tyrants. I justified death for the sake of peace. And yet I stand here because I believe we can be better." He turned to Jon. He took no joy in what he did. He took no power, no reward. He gave up everything. And that is exactly why he can't rule. The room fell still. Tyrion turned back to the table. "But someone must. We can't keep chasing fire with fire. We need reason. We need restraint. We need humility." He let those words hang in the air, and for the first time he saw understanding in their eyes. Then Sansa spoke. "The North will remain free. That was the price of our loyalty. The rest of the realm may choose its king. But the North bows to no crown." No one argued, not this time. Then Davos looked at Tyrion. "You speak like a man with no desire to sit on a throne." Tyrion gave a hollow smile. "That's because I have none." "Good," said Nera Martell. "Because that's the only kind of man I'd ever trust to wear a crown." Sam stood. "Then let it be known, by vote, not by war. We name Tyrion of House." He paused. "Targaryen by blood, Lannister by name. The first king of the Free Council, protector of the realm, the broken thread that mended the crown." Tyrion's knees almost buckled, but the votes came, one by one, and when they were done, Tyrion sat in silence as the crown, simple, steel, unadorned, was placed beside him. He didn't touch it. Jon was sent to the wall, not as punishment. Not truly, but as peace, to live out his days where men took no sides and titles meant nothing. As he passed Tyrion on his way to the docks, he stopped. "You'll be a better king than any of us ever hoped for." Tyrion gave a sad smile. "Then let's hope the world stays small and quiet." They embraced, two men broken by duty. Then Jon rode north into the snow. Arya left for the west, past maps, past borders. She needed no titles. Sansa ruled the north. Firm and fair. Bran disappeared. No longer the three-eyed raven, no longer a player, just a whisper in the trees. Davos became Hand. Brienne remained Lord Commander of the King's Guard. And King Tyrion ruled not from a throne of swords, but from a chair by the fire, with scrolls and ink, wit and guilt, never far from his side. He never married. He never took a lover. He drank a little, advised often, and walked the halls of power with the quiet fear of a man who had seen what crowns could cost. Peace followed, not forever, but long enough, and in the end, the realm remembered Tyrion not as the dwarf, or the drunk, or even the dragon's bastard. They remembered him as the king who never wanted to rule, and ruled better for it.